All right, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and I'm sorry about the delay on this. I was feeling a little burnt out last week. It's been a fun and exciting couple weeks, but I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it. But I'm back this week to give you guys my review of the Kenobi series finale, or season finale. You never know nowadays. But I enjoyed this finale and thought it delivered on most fronts and saved the series a lot for me. I'll mostly be focusing on the Vader and Obi-Wan showdown, but I also want to discuss Obi-Wan and Leia's relationship wrap-up, as well as Reva's conclusion. So let's start with the rematch of the century, which, in all honesty, I thought was a worthy successor to the Revenge of the Sith duel. The choreography was very reminiscent of the prequels, which was impressive considering they were limited by Vader's mobility. The physicality was great, especially Vader's sucker punch of Kenobi, or Kenobi using the hilt of his lightsaber to destroy Vader's respirator. Side note on that, Vader's damage breathing sound effect is probably my top 5 favorite Star Wars sound effects. It immediately makes me emotional because it transports me directly to the end of Return of the Jedi when he is redeemed and sacrifices himself for Luke. It is such a painful sound, and I feel like it perfectly personifies his suffering. I just love it, and you know Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, so I'm so glad that they used the sound effect in this episode. Other than the physicality, the over-the-top use of the Force was also a cool aspect of the battle, and I think it was done tastefully. I usually caution against any Force power fantasies, because that's not what the Force is truly about, but I thought the use of the terrain was a nice touch here. That was probably the most Force we've seen used in a lightsaber duel since Attack of the Clones between Yoda and Count Dooku. I think one of my favorite aspects of the battle and the use of the Force was the theme of Jedi protecting others. You know I'm a big theme guy. In my previous episode, I mentioned that Obi-Wan had no fighting chance against Vader at this point in the timeline, unless he was protecting someone or was able to off-balance Vader. Both occurred in this battle. Jedi are the most powerful Force users in the galaxy when they are driven to protect others. In this case, Obi-Wan's strength truly returns when he feels the duty to protect Luke and Leia. That is when the tide turns in this battle. It's a great detail that we see across Star Wars mythology, and it returns here. Vader loses because his source of power is anger, while Obi-Wan is fighting with a sense of purpose. Additionally, Vader, as alluded to at the end of the episode, is off-balance when facing people he once cared about, or still does to some degree. In this case, it's Kenobi, and in other cases, it's Ahsoka and Luke. All people he loses to. So shifting to the more emotional aspect of the episode, the most important part, I think they nailed it overall. The emotional beats and dialogue drew heavily from Rebels and Revenge of the Sith, which makes sense in the scheme of the characters' journeys. Obi-Wan saying, "I'll do what I must" from Revenge of the Sith, and Vader saying, "Then you will die" from Rebels were fun callbacks. Part of me wished they had some fresh dialogue, but they committed to the concept of mirroring, so I'm fine with it. But of course, let's get to the scene. So Obi-Wan cuts Vader's mask, revealing Anakin. This is obviously taken from Rebels, but in this case, Obi-Wan takes Vader's left side, while Ahsoka took Vader's right side. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka are the two halves of Anakin's life as a Jedi, and really his life overall, and they are the most deserving to see Anakin one last time to confirm their worst fears. Some people pointed out that Ahsoka removed half his mask, Obi-Wan removed the other half of his mask, and Luke was able to finally take the whole mask off to save Anakin. I thought that was a really nice detail. They even lifted the idea of Anakin's eyes turning from blue to red, just like in Rebels. Before I get into the dialogue, I do want to mention again that I love how Vader is unbeatable against every other foe unless it's a loved one. Obi-Wan was never more powerful than Anakin, but he beats him in every duel they have because Obi-Wan has patience and is fighting with a purpose in every case, while Anakin/Vader is fighting with emotions. Really showing the duality between the dark side and the light side. The dark side relies on powerful emotions, while the light side is fighting for the good of others. So there's a lot to discuss with this helmet scene. For one, the performances from Ewan and Hayden are top-notch, as they've been throughout the entire series. Obi-Wan breaking down at the sight of his old friend was moving, to say the least. And Hayden was able to emote so much with only half of his face showing, and his voice work was extremely haunting. The shift between James Earl Jones and Hayden's voice was incredible, and I think the most impressive part was when Hayden said, "I will destroy you." If you listen back, Hayden's voice seamlessly blends into Vader's, and I almost believe that they just altered Hayden's voice and didn't use James Earl Jones' voice at all for that line in particular. I would definitely go back and listen if you can. The whole sequence was masterful from Hayden, and I give him so many props for jumping back into this role and committing to the nth degree. And how could we not appreciate Anakin yelling Obi-Wan and giving us a rival to Maul's Kenobi scream? I think the most interesting line of this exchange had to be Anakin almost absolving Kenobi of his failure. "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin. I did." It's a fascinating line because it can be interpreted in so many ways. I believe the little piece of Anakin that exists within Vader is saying here, "It's not your fault. I made this choice. My mistakes are my own," which is a really touching moment. Of course, as he delivers this line, he shifts back into Vader with a sinister-like smile, and he becomes drenched in red light. Having seen his friend gone, Kenobi leaves and can finally move on without fear that Anakin is still there. Anakin died on Mustafar in his eyes. It's a sad realization because Obi-Wan has no plans to ever try to redeem him or even seek his redemption at any point. In the original films, he advises Luke to kill him at any opportunity when he faces him. It's a bleak ending, but I think it upholds the canon really well. Aspects of the battle I wish were done better. I think music was a huge missed opportunity. Hearing Battle of the Heroes during their clash or the immolation scene score from Revenge of the Sith during the mask scene would have taken their interaction to the stratosphere. I don't want to take anything away from the original score. I think it is good. But when you have gold in the catalog, why not utilize it? It really is upsetting the more I think about it because music is 50% of the Star Wars experience, maybe more. It taps into the raw emotions of when you first experienced that score and the feelings that it carried along with the scene. Kyle, who you all remember from the Scores of Star Wars episode, sent me a rescore video of the battle, and I had goosebumps for the entire sequence. It made me mad because of how good it was. It was an entirely better experience, and this was in a YouTube video. I can't imagine what Skywalker Sound could have done with this. I can't recommend it enough. It's on YouTube. It's called like the rescore of the Obi-Wan and Vader rematch or something like that. You can find it out there. It's so worth your time, especially if you like the duel as it was. That video really drove home the point that the lack of impactful music was a huge missed opportunity to land that knockout emotional punch to an already great scene. Another piece that I kind of alluded to already is some of the dialogue was recycled. While I enjoyed the parallels, I do wish there was a line in there referencing how Obi-Wan tried to let Anakin have a normal life within the Order, and that ultimately led to his demise. He wanted Anakin to experience the love that Obi-Wan could never bring himself to have. The best thing about Clone Wars was exploring how similar Obi-Wan and Anakin's journeys were. Obi-Wan had Satine and considered leaving the Order for her, Anakin had Padme, and Kenobi knew it and let it happen. They both lost father figures as well. Obi-Wan also knew how close Ahsoka and Anakin were and didn't discourage him from having strong attachments because he himself couldn't do it either with Anakin and himself. I truly believe Obi-Wan let Anakin have a long leash because he wanted the best for him. He wanted him to go beyond the Order, something he was not capable of. A line referencing this feeling, for me, would have went a really long way and added a lot to the canon, I felt. Overall, I think the battle did what it needed to and provided some exciting and emotional moments while sticking to the core themes of Star Wars. Side note, again, Rebels has been validated to the highest degree, and if you haven't seen it, you need to get on it right now. The helmet scene once again shows that Clone Wars and Rebels are the most important pieces of Star Wars since Revenge of the Sith, and it's not even close. Dave Filoni has crafted beautiful, lasting, timeless Star Wars stories. Okay, so let's move on to the Reva storyline. And like all aspects of her journey, the main ideas are good. The execution on getting there was not. I mean, having Reva being faced with the choice of enacting justice for her fallen brothers and sisters by destroying this Force-sensitive son of her enemy/abuser is a great idea and dynamic. But the leap of her seeing a scratchy holo recording and piecing together that this boy on Tatooine is Anakin Skywalker's son is a stretch to say the least. Bail, again, is the biggest idiot ever. She also still has a hole in her stomach, and she was just left on the planet with no form of transportation, yet she just shows up on Tatooine at the beginning of this episode. I appreciate that she's a fighter and that she's a survivor, but give me a little something more than that. I did like Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen's defense of the homestead and how they protected canon by saying it was Tusken Raiders and that Luke never actually saw Reva or an Inquisitor. I think it would have been much more poetic to have Reva make that choice to not kill Luke when she had the chance, and have Uncle Owen or Aunt Beru kill her the split second after. This would have given Reva her closure while also protecting the fact that now she knows the most important information in the galaxy. It also justifies the ending when Obi-Wan shows up and he can see that Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru can protect Luke by themselves, and that they truly see him as their own. In this ending, they really fail to protect him. I mean, they try. It's an amazing defense against a Force-sensitive person, but they do fail. While my ending is a little more morbid, it would mirror Trilla's ending from Jedi Fallen Order, where these Inquisitors realize their mistakes, but unfortunately they don't live to see the world in that new light. The ending they went with was much more hopeful, which Star Wars should always be, but all things considered, I don't think it worked here. The other aspect of Reva's storyline is that in this episode, it felt very out of place with the conflict of Vader and Obi-Wan. There was no tension. We know she doesn't win. We know she doesn't kill anyone she's attacking. We know the payoff would either be her death or redemption. Of course, you could argue that there was no tension in the Vader-Obi-Wan battle because they both survived, we know that, but there was so much more emotional weight between those characters. There was tension in not knowing what they will say to each other and how that will resolve before A New Hope. So all in all, I like the ideas of Reva's story arc and the ultimate redemption that we do get, but the execution, like most of her story beats in this show, was lackluster. The biggest fear for me on why this was is the spin-off rumors for her character. Spin-offs, I feel, compromise a character's arc, and the character is no longer written truthfully. The character doesn't get done justice because you aren't writing with an end in mind. You're more like keeping them alive so a continuation is possible. Of course, these are still rumors, but that's my overall sentiment on poorly planned spin-offs in general. Moses was great in this episode, and the fight at the homestead was cool, but for me, the plot trumps all. My sister and I are working on a show rewrite, and I promise you're going to like what we did for Reva's character. For the rewrite, we're just simply improving upon the story beats that we already have from the show. We're not scrapping the entire show and rewriting it from scratch. And we're going to try and keep the same story beats for most characters and kind of show what they could have done differently. It's just for fun. We're not trashing the writers or anything, but I really am proud of what we came up with, and I think you guys will really enjoy it as well, so keep an eye out for that. Finally, I want to discuss the satisfying wrap-up of Obi-Wan and Leia's relationship. I think their scenes in this episode were really touching, the last one in particular. And no, I didn't just like the last scene because they finally used the Leia theme and the Force theme from John Williams, but those played a big part, I must say. But yes, hearing Leia make Obi-Wan belly laugh put a smile on my face. I love that Obi-Wan had finally reconciled his feelings on Anakin and was able to talk about him to Leia. Telling Leia the best qualities from her parents really warmed my soul. And the fact that he said he couldn't tell her anymore and she looked over at her new parents and said, that's all right, because they were enough for her. Their interactions throughout the show have been some of the best parts, and I'm glad she was included from start to finish. Other pieces of the finale that I'd like to discuss, yes, we finally got Ewan saying, hello there, again, which was fantastically cheesy. I know the writer's room had a good laugh while writing that one out, but it was a nice sentiment for him to finally meet Luke, and it gives nice continuity for Luke in A New Hope, saying, oh, I wonder if they mean old Ben Kenobi. So it shows that they had an interaction early on. The great Ian McDiarmid makes an appearance as Emperor Palpatine in a super underrated scene. Sidious tightens the leash by implying that Vader is replaceable after his failure against Obi-Wan. The Sidious-Vader dynamic is always something that I feel can be expanded upon because it's truly a mentally abusive relationship. Vader is kept in a mental prison, and Palpatine needs to continually remind Vader that he will never get out. Really great use of the Emperor here, and very reminiscent of the Lords of the Sith novel, if you've read that one. Qui-Gon the King returns, which we all knew was coming, but the execution was still fantastic. Took you long enough, was perfection. Thematically, Obi-Wan finally opening himself fully to the Force and letting go of his past and moving on from his failure allowed him to reach that enlightenment of him seeing his old master. But of course, Obi-Wan has much to learn. That theme of letting go of the past from Last Jedi seems to be popping up a lot, huh? It is funny when you think about it that Yoda told him in Revenge of the Sith 10 years ago that you will talk to Qui-Gon, then just dropped him on Tatooine and said, figure it out. Took him 10 years, but he finally got there. So yes, those are all my thoughts on the series/season finale. You never know. As I said, this was a satisfying finale for me for the most part and gave us a great fight scene in moments that we've been waiting to see for a very, very long time. Some aspects fell short, like music choice, Reva's story execution, and maybe some dialogue to some degree. But like I said, I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on the series. I'm putting together a kind of patchwork of interviews. So instead of doing a roundtable with just 3 or 4 members of the Star Wars Mark of Balance community, I want to get everyone involved. I'm going to reach out to people and get like a 5-minute snippet of our conversation talking about what you thought of the Kenobi show, what was your favorite moment, and what do you think they could have done better. And I think that'll be really fun. I hope to get as many people as I can to really share your opinions and allow you guys to get your thoughts off on the series, which I think is really important because this is a prequel era show and a lot of my listeners are of that generation. So I think it'll be really important to get you guys involved. So yeah, look out for those DMs. Let me know if you want to be a part of it. I reach out to people I think would be interested, but if you're listening and I don't reach out, please, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I want to give my opinion on Obi Wan Kenobi. That would be great. So to interact with me, follow me on Instagram at star_wars_mark of balance. Let's talk Kenobi. Let's talk Star Wars. Interact with the content. See when I post new episodes. I, of course, always appreciate the support. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.